camera on?
Big butt cut.
There we go. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting, Thursday, October 25th, 2018 at 7 o'clock. Are we ready for our tax classification hearing?
They are
The
upstairs.
assessors are gathered and ready to go.
So Dawn
So
and...
they're waiting for their call?
Yeah.
It's the makeup, they gotta get the makeup and the
makeup,
costume,
that's right.
the assessor's uniforms, you know,
The
stuff.
hourglass store.
Just open the hearing and then you can turn it over to them.
But is that by reading this intro? or-
I would just read the intro. Actually, you don't even read to you, just say that the board's opening the tax classification hearing. And then you can turn it over to the Board of Assessors.
So you're gonna be like a band music and the anthems.
We have no theme music for them.
Yeah.
Apologize, my watch is fucking slow.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Good to see you.
Well, well.
Welcome. Good to see you.
How are you?
Okay,
Good to see you.
Nice to see you, Dave.
Are we all here?
They're coming.
Everybody's coming.
Does anyone have things that I emailed them or I need a copy?
I think they're all part of the package.
Copy?
I do.
Oh, you have
Yeah, it was part
Yeah,
of the
it's part of,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's in the
Look
back,
at that. We're rolling good.
which is very helpful, thank you. Hi.
Welcome. Up here. So we're going to open the tax classification hearing, and I'll turn it over to you, David.
All right. Well, we're here once again to talk about split rate or single tax rate. So I had sent everybody a copy of their tax classification document, so I'm just going to go over a few of the pertinent items and then we can dive into the nuts and bolts of the split or single tax rate options. So for fiscal 2019, we were in a certification year with the Department of Revenue. We have wrapped that up. We have all our values approved and everything was ready to go quite early this year, which is fantastic. I think we had everything done within 3 weeks, which is a record for going through the Department of Revenue. So that gets us here early, which is also a great thing, which means we can get our tax rate set early. So on page 3, if we want to just look at that real quick, we'll just talk about the levy changes here. So we have fiscal year 2018's levy, we started at $19,891,622. We had the Prop 2.5 increase for $497,291. New growth is down a little bit from prior years, but we ended up at $305,529. So that gives us our kind of subtotal, if you will, levy limit $20,694,442. We add in our excluded debt, $1,354,275, which is steadily coming down, which is a good thing. So that gets us to what we're looking to raise that taxes is $22,048,717. We have our valuations down below. So total town valuation, we are at $1,056,865,701. Again, we're seeing more of a shift to the residential class. We're just over 93% now on the residential class and 6.77% of our commercial, industrial, personal property. while we're talking about this, usually if you see a community that's looking to do a split tax rate, you're gonna wanna see probably around a 25% mark on that CIP. We are far from that. And,
I just had a question.
Sure.
So new growth revenue, that's from real estate taxes and,
New growth is any additions that we are taxing for the first time. So new constructions, additions, personal property, it would be any additional value in personal property.
Land splits.
Yep, new lots that were created this year, those would be new growth.
All the way down to a deck.
Now, following up on that group of information, the only section, the only type of property, well, obviously, as you pointed out, residential is now 93.23% of all the revenue, which is an increase from last year. But personal property went up. What was driving that?
Largely in part because we were in a certification year, so we were required, we were at the end of our 9-year schedule. So personal property, like residential, every 9 years you have to do a full measuring list.
Assessment? Okay.
So we did a full measuring list, or I should say Cynthia did, she worked quite hard at that, and discovered some new accounts, got some
Okay.
good amount of new growth on the personal property side, so.
Okay.
Do have to commend her on that, it was a big undertaking.
Yeah.
And she saved the town quite a bit of money by doing it herself, usually that's a
Yeah,
a
we
pretty good
subbed it
price
out
tag.
for 5,000 to 7,000 on a normal basis.
Always previously.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Cynthia.
yeah.
So based on our town value and what we're looking to raise, based on the levy, we have a proposed tax rate of 2047. We're actually going to be coming down in the tax rate. With that said, we're also looking that the values are going up approximately 3% from last year. So on the bottom half of page 4, you'll see tax impacts. The average single-family valuation has gone up from $514,200 to $528,000. And so there's not a huge increase, and that's also good because we have the tax rate coming down, so people are only gonna see about a $185 increase in their tax bill for the year, which is quite nominal compared to the last, boy, I can't remember how,
That's the lowest
probably
we've seen in
decade.
several years, you know.
So I went back and I looked, and in 2017, the tax rate was $21.20 per thousand. It's down almost $1. It's down 80 cents since then. So that's,
Yeah.
I think that's a good reflection of the rising values of the the residential real estate in Bolton.
Yeah. I did already actually start looking preliminarily at the sales for calendar year 18 for fiscal 20. Our high-end market is coming down, which I'm kind of seeing in multiple towns around the area. But still going to be probably a good 3 to 4% increase in values
The low
next
end
year.
is coming up. Yeah, the low end.
High end is over $1 million, generally speaking, just for you folks. The low is usually at something under 250 to 300.
Another good aspect of the values going up is we also have a rising excess levy capacity, which is pretty nice. It's one of the first in a long time, usually, or I can't say usually, but for a number of years, we were having to tax to max. And we would only have maybe a couple thousand of excess levy capacity. We're looking at $414,676.10 of excess levy capacity.
And we've worked really hard the past few years to avoid getting to the max, and we've been able to avoid it by, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you differentiate between the levy capacity and the levy ceiling?
So we'll go back to that and
The levy ceiling's 2.5% of everything in Bolton, as I recall. That's the legal limit beyond which you cannot tax.
Right.
So what's,
So our levy ceiling would be 26,421,643.
right. And what's our levy capacity? Is that the 22,048,000?
Right, that's what we
Okay.
could tax to.
Okay, so that's,
No, that's what we're taxing. Did I put the?
No, that's
That's what we're
that's
taxing
the
to.
levy to be raised.
Yeah, so if you took that 22,048,717 and added the 414,
Mhm.
we'd have the max that we could go.
Right.
wait a minute, there's a
So-
$4 million difference between the levy to be raised and the levy ceiling.
Right, the levy ceiling is basically, would be our overall town value at 2.5% of that.
Right.
Is
So
26.
what's,
I actually forgot to put that in here, so I do apologize for what our capacity would be for this
okay,
year.
so what's the definition of the capacity then?
So, if we were to levy to the max, it would be our 22,048,717 plus the 414,676.10. I could calculate quickly.
No, that's all right. I'm just,
So that's our,
He's looking for a definition.
I mean, because
that's our
short of an override,
levy limit,
yeah, short of an override or more debt exclusion,
right?
the most we can tax is the 22,048. So I don't know where the 414 fits in.
No, I actually have there is a typo in this. So our tax to the max would be the 22,048,717 plus the 414,676.
So
So the typo is the 6 on the levy
Yeah.
ceiling, that would be
I think I
22,000.
just pasted the wrong number in the wrong
So
slot.
using the 123 for the valuation.
Correct.
So use the valuation.
22, not 26, is
That'd
that?
be $10 an hour.
also the levy ceiling
Oh,
isn't
but
26
it's-
million, it's the 22,048 plus the 414.
Right.
That seems,
We have two options.
I don't understand how you can do that if your tax rate's at 20.
They like this, fine.
If it's $25 per thousand, then you're at the maximum levy
So then
ceiling.
put the wrong number in. Let me see. So our year, right, the levy, I'm confused. The levy ceiling is the 26, which we can't get to, because
Okay.
our tax to the max would be 22,463,393.
463.
That makes sense. You think you could add the
393.
Okay, so the 22,048 is a typo? No, we can't.
No,
because-
that's our actual levy that we're levying.
That's your actual levy.
Yes. Our levy limit, that's where the typo
Oh,
is.
okay, okay.
Yeah, the levy limit is the one
Okay, so
that I
there's-
put the wrong number in.
there's a
So I
line.
apologize for that.
What is the levy limit?
The levy limit would be 22,463,393.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's,
The levy limit, Bob, is wrong,
okay.
as printed in
On the
this sheet.
on the-
So the levy limit is the levy to be raised plus the 414 of excess capacity? Yes or no?
No, the levy limit is the max that we could levy. I put a typo in here. Our actual levy is 22,048,717. Our levy ceiling is the 26,421,640.
Okay, so where the levy limit's defined, all right, so that's
Yes.
22, what was that, 22?
63.
463, okay.
393.
393, okay.
Sorry
Now-
about that, Tom.
Now I'm a happy guy.
All right, so I apologize.
It's all right.
So your recommendation is to maintain?
So
the-
our recommendation is to keep the single tax rate. I think in your packets you have a shift factor. So just for an example, if we wanted to save the taxpayer the $185 and keep their tax bill the same as last year, we would have to shift 23% to the commercial,
And that's
which would
not including the 7 that's already.
which would only get the residential tax rate to 2013, and then the commercial tax rate would be 2518.
And everybody would not extend their leases.
Which not only affects commercial, industrial, personal property, also affects all
Ag.
farmers.
Oh, apartments, right.
Yeah.
So it is the board's opinion to
Yep.
recommend a single tax rate.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we take the recommendation of the Board of Assessors and have a single tax rate for FY19.
Second,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against?
Gentlemen, if David has a form,
And then I do just need a quick signature for the LA5, which is the reporting of the levy, the single rate, and then that I reported that we have 414,676.10 of excess levy capacity.
And who needs to sign it, all three?
All three, yeah.
well,
Just
we need
sign
two
anywhere?
out of three.
Donna, am I supposed to read this?
Yeah, you should read it, yes. If you don't mind.
Voting and tax shift factor.
I made a joke.
Yeah, just for the record.
Yeah.
The Bolton Board of Selectmen votes in accordance with MGL Chapter 40, Section 56 as amended, the percentage of local tax levy which will be borne by each class of real and personal property relative to setting the fiscal year 2019 tax rates, and set the residential factor at 1,000 with a corresponding CIP shift of 1,000 pending certification of the town's annual tax recap by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue.
And at this point, you can close the hearing.
Make a motion to close the hearing.
second,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
For your work.
Do you have an extra copy of this?
Yeah.
No, the.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Stand up.
Anybody else want to copy of that?
Oh, sure.
that's where I get my questions for next year.
That's right.
And we love them, by the way.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
A lot of work, we appreciate it.
Next, we have Mike Savageau, the building inspector, and Jenny Jacobson, health and permitting assistant, for a request to increase building, electrical, plumbing, and gas permit fees.
Good evening. How are you doing?
How are you?
Good. Good evening, everyone.
See you.
This one, I left mine on my desk, so I'll share with
The
you.
peek over on So we have been looking at the fees and just comparing them to other towns, primarily because we're looking toward new software. We just thought it was a nice time to look at if we're in sync with where we should be with the market. So I compared to all the neighboring towns, and it seemed like for building and for electrical, we were definitely below many of the other towns, Harvard being the exclusion. But if you look at the top, you could see that Harvard hasn't redone their fees since 2003, and I think the last time we did building was 2012.
For us, yeah.
And for electrical and plumbing was 2009. So we had I had given Mike two proposals for some changes.
Jenny, I just want to add to the board that Jenny did all the research on this, so I'm letting her
So
speak
it's all wrong,
because,
it's not-
no, but she collected all this data, and I want to congratulate her for doing this because it's been some time in coming. We're at a point where we really need to increase the fees of at least some of our permits. And that's why Jenny is presenting this, because rightly so, she gathered the data, and I can answer any questions in regards to that also.
Okay, thank you.
So I had looked at just keeping it consistent with how we've been doing building fees, but then in talking to Stowe particularly, they use the International Code Council building valuation data, and when the benefit for doing that is that when that number goes up, then the fees will go up without revisiting the fee schedule again.
That's the national standard for construction costs.
So Mike is preferring the proposed two, but I did give you guys, did I give them the
One
chart
also.
that compared some building?
Yep.
But did I give them the,
Proposal,
this here?
proposed and proposed too.
No. So I ran some
I
permits,
don't have that.
I ran some permits through,
This one,
But this
building.
oh, yeah. Yeah, so the first column shows what we're charging for a few different permit types, and then you could see what other towns are charging for the same permits.
Is Berlin's number at the very bottom correct?
The 19?
Yeah.
New construction.
New construction at the very bottom.
Says
19.5.
That's the one, I actually called and checked with the building inspector on that, because I couldn't believe it, and I had an email,
19,000 for a building permit?
yeah.
Well, assuming
That's for all the services.
Assuming the size of dwelling that.
Yeah,
we're
so I told him
comparing it
the cost of construction, the size, the square
Yeah, still.
footage, and, because I wasn't sure I was using their building permit fee schedule right, but I sent him an email
You
with,
verified it.
and yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you,
he said,
some
"Yeah,
towns,
that sounds right."
I mean, we just did, obviously, we went to the local surrounding communities, but there's some towns that are like, cost you a fortune to build a house.
Yeah.
Just the permit.
So my idea was not to like be the most expensive town in the area, but I was trying to be on par with them.
So basically what we do is we come down, when you look at the international code chart, it gives you the type of construction. So we'd be looking at like the wood frame construction for residential, 1 and 2 family dwellings. Those would be at like 123.40 per square foot would be the estimate of what you use for the construction cost. So you take the 2,000 or the 1,000 square feet and you multiply by that. And that would tell you roughly what that 1,000 square foot house should cost you, you know, price-wise, and then you do it, you take that total, and then you do $10 per thousand of that total valuation. So if we had, you know, a 2,000 square foot house, right, you'd get a value for that house times,
But you could see-
figure it would be one,
Because I have a 2,000.
well, you got a 2,000 square foot house right here, so if you just want to explain the chart right here for the difference in the cost. So right now, we'd be going from $1,772 for roughly a 2,000 square foot house. We'd be going, proposal 1 would be $1,800, proposal 2 would be about 2,500. So, I mean, if you look at where everyone else is at, also, you got some that are over 2,000, you got some that are under 2,000, some that are, you know, a little over, some that are just around the same, almost identical to what we have. But, you know, you look at like the numbers of houses we do in town, we have a lot of construction from out of towns now coming in, it's a big impact on the community. We haven't raised the prices in several years.
Yep.
And we're kind of long due to do that. And, you know, I think if we went with proposal 2, it puts us in parity with other communities of our size and value, I would say. And again, this is for the new construction. And then there are just some minor increases, I'm talking $25 here, $25 there, just on your basic everyday things that people pull permits on. So the homeowner that's in town, who's not the developer or the builder, is just paying a nominal fee more on only a few items, that they, like a swimming pool might go from $50 to $75. to bring it up to, up to par.
That's fine.
And as far as the proposals go, we do have proposal 1 and we do have proposal 2. Proposal 2 puts us in parity with a lot of the communities with a slight increase. Proposal 2 will catch us up for several years. And now we're paying for a new software, we have a new software program coming in, we have to take.
But that's not why we're doing it. We're doing it to be, to be on average.
With this size community with other
I don't want to
towns.
create the impression we're raising this because we have new software.
Oh, no, absolutely not, no, this is long overdue to increase the fees
Right.
to bring it to parity with other
So
communities.
if the board were to approve this, when would you propose the new fee structure go into place?
We could do January 1 if it makes
I
it easy.
think December
Could
3rd
it-
probably makes sense because we're launching Viewpoint.
I mean, just a coincidental, I think going into the new program is what actually sparked us to really take a hard look at this now. And then we do get comments from people like, that's all you guys charge? I mean, we get those
We have
comments.
contractors that say that.
Yeah.
We have contractors that say, that's all you charge?
Do
Okay.
you know how much this would cost me?
Yeah, I'm telling you, we've been very, very reasonable. So we would like to go with the IBC chart for the type of, for the 1 and 2 family dwellings. It's stated how they calculate it. If we use their dollar per square foot construction cost, so kind of like a national average, and a lot of towns are using it. And that would be going with proposal number 2, which would just be bringing it to parity with other communities. And you would have, without going into detail for the sake of time for this evening, the other modifications for the permits are from $50 to $75.
Yeah.
I mean, it's time for these, and some we leave alone. And, but I think it's fair, and I don't think it impacts the homeowner. But when we have the developers that come in, we have a lot that we have to do to accommodate them, and the town takes the impact
Yep.
on infrastructure, the schools and the like. So we'd like to see proposal number 2 be adopted.
So,
For building, but there's also
Yeah.
electrical and plumbing and gas.
yeah, so I have a question about this particular page with the comparison to the other towns. Because from here up, and let's talk proposal 2. The proposals are either in the middle or slightly below what the other towns are. But in the bottom half, it's dramatically above what the other towns have. And I don't understand how if you're using the same method for both cases, you get a big divide like that just based on the, I mean, I understand the
Yeah.
bottom is larger projects, but I would still think the comparability to the other towns would be maintained. So this seems below average. These seem to be much higher
difference is-
than the other ones.
Yeah, I think the difference is on that is that some towns may be just using a flat fee like we have, like $80 per thousand. So you come in with it's gonna cost me $200,000, but that's why we do it square foot wise, because somebody could arbitrarily just throw a number of what their house is gonna cost.
I mean, we're right in line with Boylston.
You know, I had to have made a mistake here because the proposed 2, I think I might have printed after I deleted some changes, because the proposed 2 was pretty much in line with Stowe, because it's based on the same numbers as Stowe,
Okay,
because they're using.
Oh, so that could be a typo
Yeah,
on the end one.
It could definitely be a typo.
okay.
But in a nutshell, if you really analyzed what,
If you're telling me that, let's take the Stowe numbers and substitute them for the proposed 2, I'm okay with
Yeah,
that.
it is.
That's
yeah,
fine.
okay, yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
That's
okay. Because it does put us in parity with the other surrounding communities.
Okay.
And the minor permits that most of the homeowners take, slight increases on just a few of them, so the homeowner really doesn't.
Yeah, the individual ones weren't egregious at all.
No, not at all, that just brings it to parity.
When I first put in these numbers, I was basing it on the estimated cost, but after I had a conversation with the communities and found out how they calculate that estimated cost, they're not taking it from what the builder is putting on the application, they're taking it from a calculation.
They're not taking what you throw out
Yeah,
arbitrarily.
somehow I.
One guy would say it's $100,000 to build this house, another guy would tell you it's $80,000.
Yeah.
So we use a standard, and then we tell them what that is based on the national standard construction costs for that type of construction.
So, we're gonna start with this, and then we have gas and electric. Is that
Just a
what
little
you said?
minor, yeah,
Yep, we could
that's
do it that way.
not my department, but Jenny, you handle them, right?
Yeah, but
You just have the.
As a
it's just-
vote, or we're gonna vote it all together?
I would just vote it all together.
Okay.
The gas and electric, the minor changes.
Minor.
Yeah.
They're just nominal increases for the times.
I'm comfortable with proposed 2.
Yep.
I am too, and with including the gas and electric. Okay. We have a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the recommendation from Jenny and the building inspector to change the, basically the fees, proposal 2 for the building fees and go along with the plumbing and gas fees as proposed,
Effective December 3rd.
effective December 3rd.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Thank you.
Thank you.
for all your work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. She made it easy for me, I'll tell you. She made it easy for me. I owe her.
For the recording?
Yeah, do you want me to,
Here, I've got one, I've got it.
do you want me to email to you, or do you?
Oh, you can email to me.
Yeah, I could do that.
Next, we have an update on the Veterans Day celebration and Hometown Heroes banner dedication on November 11th, 2018. Karen Regan, come on down. Hello.
How are you?
Thank you.
Hi, Rowan. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Thank you.
So I see you've got the materials I sent through, so I think it was last year I was in here looking for permission to move forward with the project. And I was talking to Linda and thought it was probably a good time to come in and let you know that we've actually completed the funding necessary to get all 25 banners that have been requested, designed, printed, and displayed. And that includes the brackets that will be put on in the center of town under the American flags that we have. Frog in my throat. Been a long day. And I just wanted to be here to see if you had any other questions or if there's anything that I could answer.
No, it looks great, it's great, no, super.
Put a lot of work into this, and the banners look beautiful.
Yeah, we do.
Thank you.
They look really nice.
The team from Leominster, I have to say, have been, I think everybody I've worked with really on this has been remarkable, and the outpouring of support from just, not even asking for a lot of stuff, people just doing it, has been really
That's great,
powerful.
that's great.
So we've decided to combine, we were gonna do a Hometown Heroes Day, and then we thought, well, we probably should bring the two together rather than separate them. So we're doing Veterans Day, we're just trying to elevate the event a little bit this year with the dedication. So we're gonna do a motorcade that's gonna go from the Bolton Office Park down Main Street, up Manor, then up Wattaquatic. Rich Pelletier has offered his pavilion for us to host the event, but we'll have it catered by El Camino. So just a really nice event to celebrate.
That's great.
That's good. The armistice for World War I was signed on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. And I'm glad that Bolton will be continuing the tradition of celebrating at that time.
Yeah, us too.
That's great. No, that's super, I don't have any questions, I think it's great.
We have to vote on anything, Don?
I don't really think so. It's really meant to be an update, and any questions that the selectmen had. The project was approved, as Karen said, last year.
Right.
And I think it's gonna be a great day. We're gonna hope for a sunny day.
Yeah, let's get a Sunday.
This Saturday's not looking
Yeah.
good for that parade, but
No.
So as time goes on, there'll be additional banners?
Yeah, so our hope is, we're gonna have a table set up at the bruncheon that my niece is gonna run, and if anyone comes in, 'cause I think a lot of people are hesitant once a new program, I think once they see them up, we're probably gonna get a lot of more response. So we've actually raised more money than we needed for this initial launch, including the brackets. And what we try to do is do everything really high-end, so they're very, very nice brackets, and very nice material that they're printed on, just because we'd rather put the money in the beginning, and then rather than have them break and have to replace them. But we did raise enough money that if there are additional requests, that we can start working on that. And the plan is, say we get like 100 or 200, every year we'll rotate them, so we'll have 25 poles and we'll just keep maintaining a rotation schedule.
And I think you're gonna have them up like from May to November.
May 1 to November 30th, but for the dedication, we're gonna do November 1 to November 30th, just for,
Okay.
because we're finally done.
Exactly. Super.
So yeah, that's everything.
Great.
Very good.
No, Thank you very much.
Great,
Thank you,
thank you.
Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen.
That's what my take on this. All right, unless you don't want to. Okay.
Okay. I can't read that.
Good night.
Yeah, there's extra.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Good night. We have a request from Bolton Orchards for a one-day liquor license. Is Sarah O'Toole here?
I don't see her yet.
Are we running ahead?
No.
Hold on in time.
I'm lost.
You want to stick to the complete streets?
Sure. We have Complete Streets Prioritization Plan Project rollout with DPW Director Joe Lynch. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good,
Good, thank you. How you guys doing?
Good, good, good.
It's a cool evening, isn't it?
Yes.
The heat is on.
Heat is on.
Before you start, we want to congratulate you
Yes.
on the
Congratulate the town.
big grant.
It's a wonderful, wonderful piece of news. Our work is just beginning. And to roll out a real good design that actually is going to accomplish something that's going to spring off the discussion we're about to embark on.
Okay.
And then, of course, as the project unfolds, to actually go and build it, real, in the ground project, which is
great.
wonderful.
That's the beauty of the plan we're rolling out now. Things start to fit together like a jigsaw puzzle after a while.
Good.
Great.
And
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And again, it was a team effort. It was, I just kind of spearheaded, and I've had some success with these types of grants before, but it was really getting a flair for the local desire was something I was not as accustomed to. So, the team helped us pull it all together. It was great. You may recall that a year ago, this past February, we rolled out the principle of the Complete Streets policy. And you folks approved it, and the planning board approved it, and then we submitted it to the state, and the ball has been rolling on that. And because we had an approved policy at the state level, we were then eligible to get a grant to put together a prioritization plan. We applied for, received that grant, we've got the notice to proceed, we've done our kickoff meeting, and I'm here to kind of roll that out with you folks first, and roll it out publicly tomorrow morning, if you like it. What it does is it looks holistically across the entire town. So folks think of the safety issues up and down Main Street, maybe Wattaquatic and some of the intersections along those main corridors. But the reality is every person has maybe an interest in something along their own street that we may not necessarily be aware of. So the prioritization plan is a public outreach program where it looks at everything. It looks at traffic data, it looks at previous studies, it looks at crash accident data, it looks at our existing regulations for speed, and tries to encapsulate it all under the umbrella of the policy that we would put in place, which is where all roads are being used by all transportation users, cyclists, pedestrians, vehicles, trucks, everything, on every street across town. And then from that data gathering and preparation, we can then look at where the hotspots are, which ones get the most play, which ones are the most prevalent, and establish a prioritized plan. It's a living document. It's revisited formally every 5 years. In a general sense, and every 10 years, it's rewritten. So it's something that evolves with time. But the policy we put in place, it requires us to look at all those types of factors as we consider new projects, like the water grant that we just got under the Mass Work program. Though it's not part of the Complete Streets project, because we have a policy, the project must meet those principles. So this is the start of that planning process, though, where we're going to put out notices to the public in many different forums, town website, the GATCO, announcing it to the public here, newspaper publications, Facebook postings and the various user groups, so if someone subscribes to news and we put it on our town website, we know that's gonna get a pretty broad play by the other groups picking it up, and, which is great, it's what we want. There will be one sit-down session to invite the public. We envisioning that to be the second week in October, depending on space availability. November, excuse me. Either the 13th or 14th, or Tuesday or Wednesday night, depending on, space available, and in conflicts with other meetings, because we want people to come in. But moreover, what that's going to do is really lay out informationally. We're going to record that, so we'll be able to broadcast that on Batco as well, so it'll replay for those who want to watch it and couldn't attend the meeting. But it's going to lay out the way we're going to get the data. One mechanism that works very successfully is a thing called Wiki Maps. Yes, it's the same company as WikiLeaks, but a Wiki Maps, which is in the public domain. You put it out there on the town website, we link to it, and the map comes up. And what it allows is people to take a pin electronically and pin the map. This is where I live, or this is my concern. Doesn't have to be in front of your house, it could be something you're aware of. You put a pin on it, and the pin has data attached to it, and you fill out the little form electronically, and all of that on a map populates, and maybe it provokes others to see that pin and read that comment, hey, me too, but my issue is on a different street. Take that same pin, they can copy it to another location. So it's a great way to gather data. We'll have that up and running right through mid-December. And the end result of that is electronically, it's already compiled. So we're gonna have all the technical stuff that's gathered that way, as well as the manual stuff where we have maps available here in Town Hall, at the Bolton Bean. We're gonna put them up for a week at a time. Library and other locations, just senior center, to get them out there so people can make these comments, and we can gather those parent documents back into one location and put this thing together. Our goal is to have a draft priority plan done by March 1st, beginning of March, in the hopes of getting that draft plan rolled out and presented to you folks as a draft plan, and if there's anything that's ridiculously out of line, then it gives us a month to revise that, update it, and get it back to you, because we want to hit an April 1st filing deadline with DOT. That's important, because with the plan approved by that deadline, we then become eligible for what's Tier 3, which is the next grant opportunity, which is those folks, communities that have Tier 2 approval, put the prioritization plan in place. Your project almost always gets funded at a $400,000 grant request. So that's another nice piece. And the project doesn't necessarily have to be a project all contiguous to each other, and a short corridor or a long corridor. It can be simply making various bicycle accommodations in various parts of town. That's what this plan looks to flush out, is to establish those priorities, and then really pick away at those priorities with this funding mechanism that's available through the state.
And you said the max is about 400 grand.
Max is 400, and they almost always, people put in a $400,000 project. The needs are always far, far greater than the 4, so you try to package it up to go for the max.
Yep.
So it's great. It's something we've started on for a while ago, and we're continuing that momentum, and let's hope for it. I'm here to answer questions if you have them, but more importantly, I want to invite you to that meeting. You'll get a specific invitation when we pick that date. And those folks that you run into around town or at the transfer station, who ask you, hey, what's this plan all about? You know what it is. You simply can direct them to the Public Works website. All of the information will be right there in one concise spot. Those folks who don't have access to computers, that don't have the wherewithal to want to use computers, just have them call me. We'll give them the guidance. We can take a real pin and a real data slip and fill it out for them over the telephone.
Thank you very much, Joe. Appreciate it.
As part of your data collection, is there a component of this that talks to institutions in town, like the Council on Aging, like the library, like the school district, about particular concerns that they have?
Yes, in fact, we've already had a kickoff meeting. We've already started assembling data. We've already reached out to stakeholders that we think have a real say in it. For example, the transportation group at the schools department. The bus drivers know more than we know about some of the obstructions, and they may even know where there are safety issues with kids walking to an area where a bus stops.
Okay.
It's great to get that input from those professionals.
Yeah. Okay.
What we haven't done is reached out to the business community, but, on our team, it includes the planning department and Dawn as well. We know for a fact Paragon's got some input. We will probably do a lunch presentation down there for them.
Okay, that's good.
And council on aging, same sort of deal. We'll go down there and have my coffee and donuts with them,
Okay,
and we can take our slips, and I'm sure they'll come back with a handful of comments.
good. Good. Good, sounds like
Do
a
you have
touching all
any,
the bases. then.
Questions? Audience? Yes.
Not November 14th, because the Cultural Council is having our meeting.
So not the 14th.
day. And Teresa, who runs public access, is the co-chairman of the Cultural Council, so I just wanted to say that.
That's excellent.
Thank you.
Public input's broken already.
Great, well, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
And the ambition of getting it done so early is we did not want to conflict with the holidays. We wanted to get that meeting rolled out before Thanksgiving time, so give the people their own pace between now and the middle, even before Christmas, to get those things in, a whole month to do that. Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
very well, thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Joe.
Is Sarah O'Toole here? So we'll move to Town Administrator Report.
All right, thank you. Let's see, there is no new news on Minuteman. There might be, but there isn't, so that's good news. Update on the Portico project. We're still probably a couple of weeks away from getting started. They brought the lift in twice to get into some areas that they hadn't gotten into before, found a couple of things that weren't what they expected to see, so they're sorting out how they're going to deal with some structural issues before they proceed. So nothing that I'm concerned about, but they, not surprisingly, they found a couple of surprises in there when they really got in. So
Flying squirrels.
they weren't flying by the time they got in there, but I think they probably did see some formerly flying squirrels. Next, update on the Fire Chief Screening Committee. The screening committee met Tuesday evening in this room. We invited 5 candidates to come in to be interviewed. One candidate dropped out the day of because they had accepted a position in another community. So then there were 4. And Chairman John Petrin, and I have to say, John has done an outstanding job as the chair. He's been an excellent chair. And I think it's been a very good committee as a whole. So John, on behalf of the committee, typed up a report out to the selectmen that I'll read to you, if you don't mind. It's only 1 page. The Board of Selectmen appointed this committee to review and interview candidates for the position of fire chief. The committee met on October 2nd to organize and develop a plan. All members were sworn in by Town Clerk Pam Powell. The committee voted John Petrin as chair. A meeting was set for October 16th to review the applications, select candidates for review, and to develop questions. In our meeting of October 16th, the committee reviewed and discussed the resumes of the 18 candidates provided. After review and discussion, the committee voted unanimously to interview 5 candidates. It was the committee's opinion that these candidates best met the qualifications of the position as advertised. The 5 candidates were scheduled by the Selectmen's office for interviews on October 23rd. We were notified on the day of the interviews that 1 candidate withdrew due to receiving a position someplace else. The remaining 4 candidates were interviewed by the committee, with each candidate being asked the same questions. And there was a list of the questions that the committee had agreed to that could be provided to the selectmen if you were interested. Upon completion of the interviews, the committee had a lively discussion on the 4 candidates. After discussion, the committee voted unanimously to recommend the following 3 candidates in alphabetical order for interview to the Board of Selectmen. And remind the board that our charge was to provide you with no fewer than 2 and no more than 5. So the 3 candidates that we're bringing forward for the board to interview will be William Choate, Timothy Kelly, and Jeffrey Legendre. And these people will be notified tomorrow. We're assuming they're not watching our live broadcast tonight, but if they are, then they're finding out ahead of time, but wanted to report out to the selectmen before anybody was notified. We wish to thank the Board of Selectmen for having the faith to appoint us to this committee. At the end of that meeting, we considered our work complete and accepted the fact that we are dissolved unless the Board of Selectmen charge us with a further action. And again, the committee consisted of John Petron, Chair, Ambulance Director Margie Diaz, retired Lancaster Fire Chief Kevin Lamb, myself, Police Chief Warren Nelson, Michael Murphy from Bolton, and Stan Wysocki as a Selectmen's representative. So, any questions? I'm going to be recommending, based on the way that the agenda is shaping up right now for November 15th, it's not a particularly large agenda, and with 3 candidates, I'm suggesting that we could do the interviews that night at 20 minutes each, as we did for the interim. That would be 1 hour, and I think we could probably do that comfortably.
And then we would make a decision that evening?
And hopefully you would make a decision that evening, yes. If you wanted to ponder it, then you could always continue it to another meeting, but I think you would prefer to have the goal to be to make your selection that
Okay,
night.
but we just heard that Joe Lynch's meeting is not going to be on the 14th, so that means Joe Lynch's meeting wants to put it on the 15th, which would prohibit...
No, he said the 13th or the 14th.
Oh, 13th or 14th,
yeah.
No,
okay,
he's-
I said 14th.
He's well aware that Thursdays are verboten.
Okay, okay.
So that would be the goal, assuming
Okay.
availability and
Sounds
so
That's
forth.
good.
Next, update on moving the Board of Selectmen's meetings to the Public Safety Building. I did send you an update this afternoon, which I will try to summarize. On top of what I reported at the last meeting, I have spoken with the leadership at the Trinity Church, who would be initially receptive to making the church parking lot available for use if we did go in that direction. It still needs to be discussed, and I believe the Board of Elders, but the initial response was positive, I'll put it that way, but certainly not definitive. I'd asked Joe. He's very clever, he made sure he didn't stick around for this. I had asked Joe to evaluate the expense of putting a walkway between the library and the library parking lot and the public safety building parking lot, in case the library parking lot were deemed to be an option. We reconnected earlier this week. Actually, we reconnected again today. His initial estimate, which I provided you in the email, has come down some, because when I discussed, where I thought the assumption was that we could put the walk was slightly different than his, he liked my assumption better. So his now back of the napkin estimate to install that sidewalk pathway, whatever we want to call it, would be approximately $30,000, which is somewhat lower than the original estimate based on the previous assumptions. And it would be, as you're facing the library, it would be at the left side, the left end, connecting down through that way, not in behind the building. And the goal would be, well, not the goal, the plan would be, if we ever went that direction, to keep it all on town lands. We're not touching any of the butters' land or anything like that. The ambulance department meets on the second and fourth Thursdays of every month. And sometimes there's a third meeting, I believe normally the third Thursday as well, depending on whether or not a guest speaker could be coming in for a particular purpose, or, as Margie has said, if there's something that they feel like they should be working on, it'll be a separate meeting to focus on that. So I think while the second and fourth weeks are pretty much standard, unless like last week or the week before, they rolled on a call right before, so there was nobody there, even though there was a training plan for that night. That's pretty consistent. And her feeling is that the training room really is the only room there that totally lends itself to the trainings. The other portion, and I did not have this for you when I sent out the email, but I've since received an email from Ken Troop with estimates for what it would take to be able to broadcast live from the training room, and I will be forwarding the email to you tomorrow. But to summarize, Ken says, so basically what we will need in the public safety building is that the biggest expense is in 3 cameras, which are approximately $3,000 each. So that would be an expense of $9,000. There will need to be converters for each camera. That will need to be, and there will need to be a TV monitor hooked up that will indicate when the meeting is on TV. So, in summary, he feels the bottom line is that it's doable with cameras being the majority of the cost, and the total cost, assuming we can handle the broadcast and our existing Houghton building systems, being a bit more than $12,000. That's an estimate right now. I wouldn't want to hold Ken to that, but that's what he's able to provide us at this point. So it at least gives an order of magnitude as to what we're looking at. So, you know, we still have a few open issues, but that's where we stand right now. So any questions or comments that anyone might have, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
No, I think, and my reaction at this point is it appears that there's often 2 Thursdays a month that room's open. The walkway between the library and the public safety building is not something that has to be in place when this gets started. Plus, I would suggest that when the intersection of Wattaquatic and Main Street is upgraded as part of this grant, that there's already a sidewalk in front of the public safety building that extends down to the old fire station. So it's only between Wattaquatic and the old fire station that we need to put in a sidewalk, and that could be done as part of this overall grant that we received. So that may, while it's a longer walk than cutting through the library, that's another way of solving the same problem, because people would be able to go on a good surface. I assume it would be an ADA compliant surface by that point.
It would need to be ADA compliant.
So it would be an ADA compliant surface from the library to the public safety building without crossing any streets.
And hopefully, you know, one of the other goals of the project, and I'll obviously segue into that in a minute, is sidewalk on the opposite side of the street too. Now, we would require, I think, a couple of easements to do that, but that's something that we'll certainly look at trying to do as well. So people coming from maybe people just on Main Street walking to the public safety building, you know, we would have hopefully sidewalk up that side as well.
Yeah, we have parking at Memorial Field, at the Common, so hopefully that'll be safer.
So, as I said,
Safer than what?
Safer than the current condition. So for multiple uses, yeah.
Well, safer than here where no one has to cross the street, as opposed to there where you have to cross the street. No one still has answered to my satisfaction why this needs to be done. This seems to be arbitrary and capricious, and a desire by one selectman to move the Board of Selectmen meeting because of no reason, real reason has been given, and no prior reason or condition has been brought to anybody's attention as to why we need to do this, other than you want to do it. You know, I could very certainly support, you know, if we have an issue. But we have stated on previous occasions, if we have a meeting that requires a larger meeting room than this, we can move the meeting someplace else, including the library. There is a perfectly valid and perfectly usable public meeting room at the library if we have to hold something on a rare occasion. But, you know, this notion that that's better when, you know, we have to spend money in order to do that, and it really isn't any safer. I mean, you know, walk from the Common, across Main Street, you know, go from the church across the street. So, I mean, it's not any safer than it is here, where there's plenty of parking in the back and also behind the church. So I'm still at a loss as to why we're spending this amount of, not our time, but Don Lowe's time on this, when I still don't see what the problem is. You know, if there was a clear problem where this room was inadequate for most of the time, then sure. But I don't see it. I'm not understanding why we're continuing to push this and making these claims that, oh, it's safer. It's not safer. This is perfectly fine. And for those times when we have to have a larger meeting room, move someplace else. It's just my 2 cents.
All right, well, I'll go back to the things that I mentioned when I first brought this up, which is that at the time we first had the discussion of moving from the Houghton building to here, I thought there were better solutions that we should pursue. So this isn't a brand-new idea that I've had just in the past couple of weeks. I believe this building, that this room is poorly ventilated, is very uncomfortable when it's even halfway full, and in the warmer weather is uncomfortable to all the participants. You either can't hear on the TV because the air conditioner is blowing, or else you have to turn off the air conditioner, in which case it just gets more uncomfortable in here. The Houghton building, I think, is a bigger room, it's a better facility, it's better ventilated. I think access to that is a problem due to parking. I would also point out that if you're in any way have difficulty walking down a hill, this room is got some accessibility issues because it's on a hillside. So it seems to me that we have a facility that's the most modern facility in town that provides all the amenities a public meeting place could want, and we don't use it simply because we're not in the mood. So I don't know why the people of Bolton who paid for that meeting room shouldn't be active users of it.
No one's stopping anybody from using the room, Bob.
Well, I think
And
the
you-
selectmen,
and you made this-
should be here.
You
should
made
be
the
there.
statement last time that only when the selectmen move to the public safety building will then everyone else then utilize that room. And
No.
that's a fallacy. You
No,
made-
no,
you made
that's
that-
not what I said.
You made that
No,
statement.
No, what I said was, no other committee has the purview over all the departments and the finances like the selectmen do. So the selectmen have to take the leadership position to do it, because no other committee has the broad scope to see over all the town operations and make the move on their own. That's what I said. And that's why it was incumbent upon the selectmen to be the leaders in this, instead of waiting for some other committee to openly complain. I did not say that I never said if the selectmen went there, then everyone else would go there.
Well, why is it that if we're not doing it, then other committees will quote unquote complain? They're free to set up a meeting at the public safety building. No one's done it.
There's no, the TV coverage isn't there.
There was,
They're not gonna, Bolton Access Television isn't gonna do live broadcasts. They're only gonna be doing the selectmen, advisory, and school committee. That's what they're doing now. Every other meeting, they're putting a camera up. So even when we set it up and spend the $12,000, the only meeting that VACO will record live will be a selectmen's meeting. Everybody else gets a camera.
I would
So
like to
that's,
get the clarification on that from VACO.
well, I'm on the board, and
Okay.
that's the decision that they made. As a matter of fact, Ken was here not that long ago and made that statement. But anyway, you seem to want to do this, knock your socks off.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we've got logistical issues that can be dealt with. The biggest concern I have at this point really is, and it would be a total unintended consequence, because nobody wants to do this. I haven't heard anybody say this. I just want to make sure that we aren't displacing the ambulance squad.
Exactly.
And that the trainings are not impacted.
Yes.
And if we can do that then, you know, I think one way or another we can make it work. I just, you know, my concern is the ambulance squad.
I agree, and, you know, I hope everyone caught the fact that I said it sounds like there's two Thursdays a month that are open there, so as to not displace them.
We have a comment from the audience.
I have a question, Martha
Okay.
Remington, Main Street. In May, when we were trying to set up a special public meeting for the Penn District Historical Commission, I called Lorraine Kenny, and at that time, it seemed like the schedule was full there, apparently of non-town board things, but maybe other activities.
It is used occasionally during the day, not frequently. So I don't know if it was an evening meeting or a daytime meeting.
Well, it was an evening meeting
Well,
because we'd had one that was snowed out.
In
so
the
I just-
evening, the cadet EMTs use it on Mondays for their classes. On Tuesdays, fire department uses it for their training, and on Thursdays, at least twice a month, it's the ambulance squad. The one night that isn't consistently booked is Wednesday nights.
Well, my question was going to be, if this did come to fruition and people went over there, would other non-town government groups be able to use this room for their meetings if they were small groups?
Well, I don't know what a town government group means.
Well, planning board.
Planning board's town
selectmen.
government. Conservation is town government.
Yeah,
ZBA is
historical
town government.
commission. and
Historical
all
is
those,
town, so
but
I don't know, I don't know
let's-
what you mean by a non.
Well, anyone, I believe, can schedule. Yeah, I believe any group, if they call Lorraine County, unless it's maybe the NRA,
Well, not a-
they'll let them meet over
We
there.
don't normally make rooms available to non-town groups, so again, I don't know what that means.
Well, I'm thinking the guild, the arts guild, and the peripheral groups. I don't know, it's just a thought. That it seemed to me it was used a lot more than I thought that it was used. I mean, when we had the celebration for the chief's party, it was used for that. and
But
that
that's a
was-
town event.
Yeah, right. I was just asking. I mean, the people paid for that building, and I was thinking the people should be able to reasonably use it from time to time.
I
if they
totally
can
agree, I
schedule.
just don't want to create the impression that non-town groups are using that building, because I don't believe they are.
Okay, I just wondered. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for me before I move on to MassWorks?
No.
Okay, the MassWorks grant, we've already touched on it quite a bit already. As I said in the email that I sent out and the press release, if it really was a team effort, it was certainly spearheaded, quarterbacked, whatever verb you like to use, by Joe. But certainly many other people were involved. Mary Chumo and the Public Way Safety Committee, Chief Nelson, former Chief Menser, Erica. We had I just made the cardinal sin of starting to name people because I know I'm going to forget somebody now. But suffice it to say, there was a large group of people involved. Took a lot of work. The Beta Group, our engineers. And it was a very, very well done event in Tolland. I had never been to Tolland before. I didn't know where
Are you
Tolland
going back
was.
again soon?
Good spell, Colin.
Anytime Lieutenant Governor wants to hand us a check for $975,000, I will go to Tolland.
Or anywhere.
Or anywhere else. Any of the other 349 cities and towns besides Tolland and Bolton, I will absolutely go to. It was well done, as I said, the Lieutenant Governor did a great job. Jay Ash did a great job. Jay Ash is the Secretary of Housing and Economic Development. He told me after the ceremony that he would like to come out here to see the site, walk the site and probably do a nice ceremony out here. So we'll certainly be working with him and our representatives. So again, very, very excited. To the best of my knowledge, it's the largest grant Bolton's ever gotten. And I couldn't be more proud of my staff and all the people who helped out with that. So we've done well in the past year or two with grants. We've done very, very well. I think we've pretty much cut, but yes, sidewalks will be part of that. I know we don't know how many linear feet yet, we'll have to go through all the design to do that, but but certainly improved sidewalks will be part of it. And I think it'll make that area much safer, and I think it will certainly have a very positive impact on the flow of traffic. So, any questions for me on anything, or?
Congratulations, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Don. It's great news. So we're moving on to Board of Selectmen business. First up, we have confirmed the Transportation Improvement Program TIP representative for Bolton.
This came in recently. The God's honest truth is, I always believed that our TIP representative was the DPW director. I did not know it was a selectman. So we did a little research. Stan has been the contact or the representative or whatever it is on paper for some time, because when Linda inquired who the previous person was before Stan, it was Ken Troop. So Ken hasn't been a selectman since 2010. So something happened in my first year that I don't recall. But the question that I asked Linda to pose was, is it normal or acceptable for the DPW director to be the contact?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is yes, it is. In fact, in the majority of communities, that's who is the contact. And I have a feeling this is sort of a legacy issue that goes back to before there was a town administrator, and the selectmen handled some of these things that they no longer handle.
I mean, it makes sense for Joe to be there.
So I would suggest that we change it to Joe.
Okay, well, I will move that we appoint Joe Lynch as our TIP, is it representative or TIP? Okay, as our TIP representative.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Discussion on town administrator performance evaluation. So Don and I were talking about this, and ideally, you were thinking we should be doing this before
May.
Before May, before-
If we did deliver right before the election. So it's the board that, that I report to now.
Mhm.
So if I were to receive it in April, that would be my suggestion, that would be my preference.
But we, just to kind of keep on schedule, I think we should do one for the last year, even though we're late, and then we would do one in April. Does that make sense?
That's up to the board.
I don't think we need to do two of them.
I read the town administrator's contract after I saw this was on the agenda. And he's supposed to have his goals set for the following year on March 1st every year. So I know we didn't do that this year, and I assume it hasn't been done since the contract was signed in late 2016. Is that correct?
The goals that are in the contract are the goals that are in the contract, and those are the only goals.
So there are two separate sections. There's an attachment that
There's an
was,
attachment, but I think there's a separate paragraph at the beginning that says that there's going to be annual goals set,
that's correct.
and that they would be set by March 1st. So that hasn't happened. So if we do an evaluation now, and then do an evaluation in April, we're only going to be evaluating against the same set of goals and how much has transpired over 6 months. And I don't know that there's going to be, I don't see any value to that, unless we're going to, at some point, reset the goals between now and the spring evaluation.
I mean, I think there's value, even if evaluations are late, if they're worth doing, getting into the habit of doing them every year. It's unfortunately we let this slip, that long. But I think it's worth kind of updating it and going through the process annually. Before 2016, it was inconsistent. I think,
Well, it's been inconsistent since then, too.
Well,
So,
last spring was the first time, would have been the first evaluation after the contract.
So what we could do is we could do an evaluation now, reset the goals in the March 1st timeframe, and then get back on the March 1st schedule the following year.
I think though the way the contract was structured the last time, and I raised this the last time, that caused a problem, because there is part of Don's contract goals, the contract has to be reopened. And I warned that this would happen the last time, and I advocated that a contract should be a contract, and goals should be set outside of the contract, but I was overruled 2-1. So whenever we do this and we want to look at goals, we have to legally open up the contract.
I think that, I mean, we can look at the goals in the contract, they were pretty broad. I think it was having Don writing a report, a monthly report on, what's going on in all the departments.
You just got the September report tonight, by the way.
Yep, you just sent it out. So that was one of, very broad goals. They weren't, things that, we would want to continue on, I think, till the next contract. So it's not really those things that we're evaluating. I forget what the other one is, that you were going to have meetings with all the department heads. What is that, bi-monthly?
Right, bi-monthly staff meetings.
So those are two that I can remember. So they're very general administrative things. They're not kind of year-to-year specific goals.
So there's no point doing it now and doing it in April. If we do it now, we should, I'm fine with, after reading that contract, I'm fine with doing an evaluation now, then reopening the contract, and I've got to say, there are some things in there that, particularly along the lines of evaluation, don't belong in there. But separate from that, there should, outside of the contract, we should also have fiscal year goals.
Yeah, but we're not going to reopen the contract till it's complete.
We can reopen the contract whenever we all agree we want to reopen the contract.
Yeah, but, that seems unnecessary.
Well,
I don't know why it's so hard to do a simple performance annual evaluation. Don does it for...
I don't know, tell me why it wasn't done then, if it's not so hard. Well,
Yeah.
I'm having a problem, we're going to evaluate Don, but it's the selectmen that have fallen down on the job in the past year.
Yeah, it's coming up now. We were evaluating Chief Nelson over the summer. I don't know why it wasn't brought up. It's incumbent upon all of us to do that. Don's been very busy in the last month doing interviews. This came up with Don a month ago. I just don't think evaluation should be a big, scary thing. It's just an annual thing that we do. I don't know why it's so tricky. The important thing is to do it every year, and then it just becomes a normal thing. It shouldn't be threatening or scary or raise all these big issues for anybody. It's just a performance evaluation. Everybody does them when they work for companies. I just don't know, I don't think there are going to be any surprises for Don.
I certainly don't find it scary.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone's saying it's scary or onerous, but the thing is, you and the former selectman voted to include things in this contract that shouldn't be physically in there, and one of them is goals. So, if you want to go about setting goals at the same time as doing a performance evaluation, then I think we have to really look at and seriously consider reopening the contract, because that's where the goals are. That was your making, not mine.
Those are contractual goals. What's your contract for? Is it 3 years, Tom?
3 years, I'm in year 2 of a 3-year contract.
Okay, so we're going to get there to that part, but we're just doing a performance evaluation.
Well, what do we, okay, but against what, if not against the contract? Because that's the only standards that have been set.
We had, I imagine it's gonna be a similar form to the one we filled out for Police Chief Nelson.
I believe it's almost, well, yeah, it's an identical form, obviously different
So
criteria. but-
I don't know why this is so hard. It's a base form, we're just gonna fill it out. I mean, have you two finished your forms for Chief Nelson?
It's been delivered.
Oh, it's already been
Months
done.
ago.
Yeah,
It
good.
was done a long time ago.
So,
So,
my issue is not doing an evaluation. I'm not saying we shouldn't do an evaluation. My argument is that we shouldn't be doing 2 of them inside of 6 or 8 months. That's my objection,
I would agree with that.
all right? If you want to do an evaluation now, then let's do an evaluation now. If you don't want to do an evaluation now, then let's get back on the schedule for March 1st.
yeah, no, I would like to do an evaluation now, and then we'll do
And-
one
and-
in next year.
No,
No.
no, sorry, no.
No,
No.
next year, after we finish the evaluation, we will talk about how to set goals for the town administrator for the following year.
Yeah, I agree, I agree. And the thing is.
And it may involve, reopening the contract, because there may be things we want to accomplish that don't complement the goals that are stated in the contract.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't
see-
think there was anything controversial in Don's contract. It's an open book. I don't know what you want to renegotiate like a year ahead of finishing it. That seems irresponsible.
No, I mean, maybe Don doesn't want to do the monthly report. I mean, the thing is, I don't know how much you talk with Don, and I don't know how much you talk with the other department heads, but one, I've been doing this a long time, and 2, I have regular communication with Don. I have regular communication with the people in this building. I regularly communicate with the DPW director. I regularly communicate with the police chief and the folks at the library and other folks that are town employees. I have a pretty good handle on what's going on in this town. It's not like we're in some big amorphous corporation. So I pretty much know what Don's doing on a day-to-day basis. I know how well he's doing it or not, and there's never a not. He's always doing it well. So I see absolutely no need to do 2 performance evaluations within the 6-month period. I know exactly what Don's doing, and I know exactly where he's at on stuff, as we should all. And, right now, I'm perfectly and absolutely satisfied with Don's performance. So, from my perspective, we can go through the pro forma, but I don't need one because I know exactly what's going on. But I certainly don't need 2.
I think there is a point to doing one.
Oh, no, yes, there is a point, and we should do it. I'm not saying we shouldn't.
Okay.
But I mean, I think we should have a pretty good handle on what's going on, and the fact that we certainly don't need to do one now, and we need to do one in 6 months. That's,
Well, so when I came to the board and I looked at the past years, Don was not getting reviewed every year. And the reviews were incomplete. So, that,
I just want to, I don't want to jump into your conversation, but I want to make it clear, I welcome a review. I've never had a bad review in my life. I'm sure I won't get a bad one now, so I don't find anything onerous about having a review done. How you go about it, that's not for me to say, but I have no issues with getting a performance evaluation whenever it happens.
So I'm fine with doing a performance evaluation in the next 4 to 6 weeks, just so long as it's clear that there's nothing implied about having another one in the next 6 or 8 months.
yeah, I think it's more important to keep it, get on a schedule, so you know.
So would you rather wait till March?
Okay.
When the contract says it
So,
should?
yeah, so if we can get it on the schedule and, you know, that Linda and Don are reminding us and we're not slipping, letting it slip by, that's fine.
I'm not sure where you're coming down on the question of do you want to do it now or do you want to do it later?
I'm open to doing it in 2019.
Okay.
But I wanted to get on our schedule. It shouldn't be slipping. So it's good we had this conversation. You know, Don said, you know, the ideal time for it. So it's on our schedule and that we're not having these slip-ups and then making it into a big dramatic thing. This should just be part of our yearly work. Shouldn't be a big deal. It's just normal. I don't know why it has to be kind of so tortured. Yeah. Good, so,
The only one that seems to be tortured is you, Jonathan.
yeah, no, I mean, reopening Don's contract, it's, that's a lot of drama. Okay, so do we need to vote on that?
I don't think so.
I don't really think so either, no. I mean, you've agreed on a time frame, I would say, and, you know, again, the process is however the Board of Selectmen lay it out, so.
Okay.
I would suggest, before you move on, before we lose it, is to go back to the request from Bolton Orchard, since it's pretty obvious that the lady's not coming in.
And I'm actually thinking her event was for this weekend.
So it is time sensitive.
No, with the weather, I'm thinking that maybe she decided not to, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it can always be approved and then not executed. I mean,
Well,
that's fine.
I would say, I'll make a motion, but I think I'll make a motion to conditionally approve the request for a one-day liquor license for Bolton Orchards on Sunday, October 28th, 2018, contingent upon getting confirmation by Sarah O'Toole or someone from Bolton Orchards that they actually do have a commitment from a local brewery to hold the event, to attend the event on said day.
It's supposed to be Sunday. Sunday's weather isn't supposed to be bad. Saturday's going to be ungodly from what they're talking about.
Could you add to your motion that she has the proper, that she demonstrates to the town administrator that she has the proper insurance?
Yes, and
Yes,
also
and I
that
always make sure of that. Yep.
that she also has the proper insurance.
Yep.
Okay, then I will second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any against? And lastly, approve payroll and payroll warrants W19-08 and W19-08A.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And roll call on it?
No.
No.
Minutes, do we have any minutes?
That's only for executive session.
Yeah.
Okay. I just thought I'd get it.
Everybody
Rise out of camp.
everybody's
If you want to do a
signed,
roll call, you can, that's fine, yeah. I'll say aye, I'll say aye to most anything.
everybody signed the warrants?
Yep.
Yes.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.